Hello. So, time for a video. So this is the winner of intro number 47. So as you know, well, I hope that you do know, in the group on Telegram, we are posting a topic and we invite the members to write an introduction. If you've seen recently in the last day or two, I made a couple of comments on some of your introductions. So we usually give you a week, don't know, five days or so to write your introductions. We choose 10 at random because I obviously can't assess everybody's, far too many people. And what we do out of the winners, out of those who are chosen, we choose one for a full essay correction and scoring. And that's what you're looking at right now. So I don't know who the author is. They will no doubt be notified, but whoever, this is your essay. Now, I'm going to be referring to our modified version of a public version of the IELTS writing task band descriptors. Okay, so this is purely for teaching purposes, just in case of copyright issues. Okay, purely for educational purposes. So we'll be referring to this in the commentary. So let's get started. First things first, word count. Let's have a look. 298. Okay, that's ideal. That would be fine. 298. Anything 250-ish, you're not really going to have time to develop your main ideas. Now, I didn't change this. I simply copied and pasted it, so there's some spacing and punctuation issues. I presume these are typos, so I won't make any comment about those. So, according to some, the government should be responsible for, now it's either the preservation of the environment or preserving the environment. However, some people subscribe, well, you can subscribe or simply think or hold a view. Some people subscribe to the view that everyone should accept responsibility for it. In my opinion, it will be more beneficial if both the government and individuals share the responsibility. Okay, that's pretty clear. Very good. So, now, this is a discussion. This is a discuss both views and opinion essay. Now, one of the things the criteria says, and this is just a quick point, cohesion and coherence. Cohesion attracts no attention. Well, obviously, if you're saying firstly, secondly, thirdly, on the one hand, on the other hand, then cohesion is attracting attention. Mechanical, if it's overly, So you don't really need that on the one hand, on the other hand, to attract no attention, okay? So that's just a point. You could simply say, now, let me just get back a bit. So, sentence 1 should be a main idea. All right? You don't have to restate the ideas or the viewpoints. Again, going back to this, cohesion attracts no attention. So, to get a way to avoid this, you don't have to simply restate. On the one hand, the view is that blah, 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 blah. Don't have to do that. Matter of fact, it's better if you don't. So you could say, the government, the main ways that the government can help is by legislation and funding, or by legislation and education. Yeah. So you're not restating, because also the criteria talks about progression. Where are we? Progression. Logical sequence, progression, clear progression, etc. This is the modified version, but in the examiner one, which I can't really show you, it does say progression. So back to this. So if you are, using this, on the one hand, the viewers, on the other hand, the viewers, well, that's okay, but you could get more by not using that. Don't make it that easy. As it says, drawing attention to a cohesion. So what you could say here. So sentence 1, your main idea. The state can preserve and this is just very quickly, preserve the environment in several ways, such as, what was it? Such as by legislation and education. Sorry for my typing, it's a bit shite, but there you go. So, okay, so you could do that, right? So on the one hand, it is claimed, but simply get to the point. The state can preserve the environment in several ways, such as by legislation and education, and then blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's just a tip. So, back to the essay in question then. We'll just put that to one side. On the one hand, it is claimed that governments can help in several ways. First of all, we need to legislate on environmental problems. To illustrate, there should be some strong laws allocating sufficient funds to improve public transport. Okay, so how can the government legislate on environmental problems? There should be some strong laws. About what? Some law what? So that's kind of vague. Allocating sufficient funds to improve public transport. Public transport, but that, in most countries around the world, public transport, although it says it's public, it's used by the public, it's actually privately owned. It's not state-owned. So how can the state allocate funds to private companies? So, you'd have to explain this a little. Simple assertion is not an argument. For example, buses should be equipped by, well, I'm not sure if that should be with, frequent service system. And I have no idea what that is. I understand what the words mean individually, but should be equipped with frequent service system. Do you mean that the schedule or the timetable of the buses means that they should run frequently? Is that what you mean? Because I've no idea what that particular phrase refers to. This could be more effective in encouraging people, more effective than what? More, you're making a comparative, or what are you comparing it to? This could be more effective than what's the comparison. So this could be effective in encouraging people to choose public transportation for commuting to work, which might be profitable. Well, that's not the word I would use. In reducing air pollution. So, okay. I see where it's going, but we need to make it a little bit clearer. So, strong's the law. So, what does giving sufficient funds to public transport mean? So, do you mean the government should spend money to make more buses run on time or to increase the frequency? But if it's a private company, how can the government interfere? So, I'm not quite sure how that would work. Public transportation for commuting to work. So you're saying that people drive to work because buses don't go as frequently as they would like, so they need a private car. Well, you'd have to say that. You'd have to tell me that. And the reader, the examiner, would be guessing here. You've got to fill in the blanks for us, so we don't have to guess. Another thing to consider is that they could create TV programs to educate citizens about what, and persuade them to care either about or for nature more. A little bit vague. Okay. So the government, but does the government create TV programs? Again, in most parts of the world, the TV network is private, so I'm not quite sure. So you need to draw your examples down. If you're talking about your country, then yes, but for most countries, these entities are private, and the government has little influence. So you need to specify, who, how, where, what, why, when, who are you talking about. So raising general awareness of the consequence of their activities, what activities, would result in less, it's either less environmental harm or less harm to the environment. Either one of those. So this is a little bit vague, right? If we take a look at it, okay. On the one hand, it's claimed that governments can help in several ways. Okay. First of all, they need to legislate. Okay, there should be some strong laws, as opposed to what? A weak law allocating sufficient funds. Well, again, that doesn't work in most countries. Buses should be equipped with frequent service system. I'm not sure if that means they should have more buses. So this might persuade people to get out of their cars and take public transport, which might reduce air pollution. TV programs, education, persuading them to care for nature more, which means what exactly? The consequence of their activities, what activities? And just raising awareness doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to change. Okay, but so far, so good. So, again, sentence one basically, restates the topic. Again, it's clear individual. So every individual can play an important role in protecting their own. Now, neighborhood. Now, you're confusing environment here, and you would have to spell it out what you're talking about. Environment, surroundings, means the immediate area in which you live. So neighborhood means the immediate area in which you live. We have a U there. That's how we spell it in British English, or in English as I call it. So again, you'd have to spell it out. It means that we could help to save. Now, right, I mentioned this before in the introduction. The environment. So if you're talking about the environment as a noun, a specific. So when it comes to things which are generally known, the sun, the moon, the stars, the universe, the environment, make sure you use a definite article. By recycling some products like or such as, like means similar to, and you're giving particular examples, so such as glass and paper. This looks like a long sentence. Means we can say by recycling some products such as glass and paper. End that there. As well as that, or as well as this, we could use energy saving products. Now, if it's an abstract noun, products, right, make it a plural, such as here. The dishes, activities, okay, programs. So products, because it's a general noun, is an abstract noun. So as well as this, we could use energy saving products in our house, like again, like means it's similar to, such as energy efficient light bulbs instead of regular bulbs. Right. Well, regular bulbs which last longer, but I think you mean the energy efficient bulbs. So, such as energy efficient light bulbs which last longer instead of regular bulbs. Okay. Another opportunity available is that we could save water. It is said, by whom, that water is wasted more frequently than we can see, which means what? What does that mean? That's kind of vague. So we can limit usage or the use of water as wash the dishes or as such. I don't know, is this an example? Limit the usage of water. I'm not really sure what you mean there, such as washing the dishes. I mean, you've got to wash it. So are you talking about not washing the dishes? What are you talking about? So we could limit the use of water when washing the dishes. I mean, how can you do that? I'm not really sure what that means as an example. Sorry, as an example, I'm not really sure. Taking showers instead of baths, is that what you mean? So you need to spell out what you're talking about here. So to conclude in this regard, although the pivotal role of government and environment, what is it? Let's have a look. So, to conclude, in this regard, although the pivotal role of government in maintaining the health and safety of the environment, word order, could not be passed over, well, or should not be passed over. Passed over? Well, it doesn't really say that. Every person could help, or should, again, should. Oops. What am I doing? Back. Every person should help to preserve the nature. Well, environment is not strictly nature. I hope our planet would be in a good... And this sentence, I'm not quite sure what this means at the end. It's kind of tacked on. It doesn't really connect. If you had connected it, every person should help to preserve nature, to ensure our planet will be in good condition. So you could do it like that, because that on its own seems kind of strange. Okay. So, all right, well, let's take a look then. Criteria time. Let's see what we have. So we start with task response at first. Fully addresses all parts of a task. Yeah. Position. This is discussion and opinion. So you say that both need to do it. So you need to spell out. It needs to be clear all the way through why exactly both. And right, you haven't really said why. So back to the question, and I think what you've actually done here is you've not quite read the question correctly. Let me just get the topic and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we'll come back. So this is the exact wording of the topic. So, keywords, responsibility. Some say protecting the environment is the responsibility of the government. Now, you say, according to some, but I share responsibility. However, right, on the one hand, it's claimed that governments can help. Well, it doesn't say that. It's saying who should be responsible. Some say it's the government, the individual cannot do anything about it. The other view is, actually, by our individual actions, we can and should be responsible. We should not simply accept or expect the state to do something that we could do. So it's about responsibility. Not how they can do it, but why they should or should not. Again, look at these key words, right? Some people say that protecting the environment is the government's responsibility. So you would have to say why some people think the government should be responsible. So you can maybe say, well, we pay taxes to the government to defend us, protect us. Environmental protection is the same. So the government should do it because we pay taxes. We can't do it by ourselves. The government can make laws to make people do things, so it's like, why? Why should the government? be responsible? And you would have to say because the government can take certain action that individuals cannot. That's why, okay? Others believe that every individual should take responsibility. So, for that view, you would have to explain why some people think that the individual should be responsible and not the state. So you would have to say something like, the government can do or like should deal with transboundary issues, pollution, internet, air pollution, etc. because the individual cannot make factories close. It cannot enforce. The individual cannot enforce legislation. But what the individual can do, in fact, is to recycle, to use public transport, etc. So who should be responsible and why? So that's what the question is asking. So if you don't address that, your task response score is going to be a little bit low. So you've restated here. According to some, the government should be responsible. Okay. It is claimed that governments can in modal verbs is not the same as should be responsible. First of all, they need to legislate. There should be some strong laws. Okay, buses should be equipped with frequent service. So what you are writing about is how, which is not the same as should. It's not the same, really, is it? So you're talking about how or what they can do. Now, you can use that, but first you would have to say why it should be responsibility of the government. And you would specifically have to say, because there are some things the government can do that individuals cannot do. For example, passing laws, making people do things, making companies do this. Okay? So it's not bad, but you need to specifically include that in your paragraph. The government should be responsible because only the government, the state, can make these things take place, and then talk about those. Okay? And the second one, right, again, every individual should take responsibility. So, again, you are talking about how or what we can do, but without saying why. Why should the individual? Why shouldn't we leave it to the state? So, I hope you see what I'm talking about here. So, you've essentially said what can be done, but it's not asking what can be done. You can include what can be done to illustrate your point, the main idea, which is why should the government, why should individuals? Okay, so that being said, does it address all parts of the task? No, it doesn't. It's very close, but does it address all parts of the task? Well, not really. Now, I don't want to be overly harsh, but your task response score would be affected because you haven't specifically, and again, all it would take would be a sentence to explain why they should, and then say how, because the government it's only the government that can legislate and do this. So I don't want to be overly harsh. Okay, so I will probably give task response a 7. Okay, now we've got some main ideas here. We've got a clear position, more or less. However, some of it is a little general, and some of the ideas, could use a bit of focus. I mean, relevant, extended, well-supported, well-developed response. It's not bad, but again, if we go back to it, what's it talking about? It's like, there should be some laws, okay, allocating sufficient funds, which would be what? To improve public transport. Well, how? How improve it? What does that mean? To have more buses, to improve the quality? Is public transport in your country good, bad? Are you talking about buses, trains? So here, so you've got to illustrate, so that's not really an example. Then a second one, so you could have put this in a single sentence because you've got to illustrate and for example, but it's not really a single example. So buses should be equipped with frequent service systems. So if we go, so, you know, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. So it does lack, you know, a little focus. I don't want to go down and say a 6. You know, I don't think it's that bad. But you need to explain what you mean exactly. Okay. On one hand, every individual recycling glass and paper, energy saving products, save water. So this is like a list. You've got like 3 different ideas here. It's not specifically an example. It's kind of, so I would be tempted, I think, to give task response a 7. Now, coherence and cohesion. Does it attract no attention? Well, it does, because when you are signposting, on the one hand, on the other hand, that attracts attention. Logical sequence, it's not bad. Cohesion, well managed. Well, clear central topic, kind of. Logical sequence, I think it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I think I would probably give this a 7. Also for cohesion and coherence, or coherence and cohesion. So I'd give this 7 and 7 so far, because it isn't bad. I'm not saying that. It's just there's a couple of things that we could maybe improve upon. So that's the first 2. What about Alexis? What about your vocabulary? Do we have a wide range with rare errors? Well, let's have a look. So, legislate, sufficient funds, pollution, creativity programs, lots of modal verb use, could be. But you do use quite a lot of could. Okay, could. It's not bad. I think the main thing here is grammar. So, what would I say? I didn't see any real idiomatic items, sufficient resource, and inappropriate. Occasional errors in spelling, word formation. Again, I think I would give that a 7, because we do have some errors. Not many, but there's 1 or 2. Some in appropriacies, as I said, 1 or 2 words there don't quite fit. Profitable, frequent service system. So I think that 7 will be quite fair for that. Now, the grammar. How the grammar works, they count the number of sentences. It's a number of sentences without a mistake. So you need to produce frequent error-free sentences without a mistake to get a 7. You need a majority without an error to get an 8. So we count the sentences. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, is it? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It's a little bit long. We don't really need 18 sentences. I mean, 12 to 14, that'll be fine. 18. So, a majority of 18, it will be, 10, 12, 13, 14, that's a majority. Free, over half to 3/4. So, 18 sentences, so let us see. So, 1, 2, okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. 6 out of 18. So, what do we have? Range of structure is good, so I would probably, to be fair, I would give this a 6 because there's quite a few errors there, but it's not that bad. I would give it a 6, so I'd give it 7, 7, 7, 6. So 14, 21, 27. So if we do 27 divided by 4 and round it down, so 27 divided by 4 equals 6.75. They round it down, 6.5. That's what I would give it, 6.5. Okay, so not too bad. So I hope that helps. Any questions, you can post some comments in the group and we'll try to explain, but not too bad, not too bad. Okay.